born in Saigon, Vietnam, and escaped with her family on a wooden 30-foot boat, sailing across the South China Sea to the United States and freedom. She and her family experienced several refugee camps before arriving in California in 1981. She is a graduate of UC Irvine and the Aspen Institute's Aspen Rodell Fellowship Leadership Program. In addition to being a small business owner, Senator Nguyen also served in these previous positions. She has been a member of the Orange County Supervisors. She has been an assembly person for the 72nd District. She was a senator for the 34th District and was elected to her current position, which is representing the 36th District in the State Senate in 2022. Her district is mostly here in Orange County. It ranges from Cerritos, for those of you who are familiar with Orange County. It runs from Cerritos down to Huntington Beach and then down the coast to San Clemente. So it's quite a long area, long and narrow. Senator Nguyen has received many accolades, including Legislator of the Year from the American Legion, the Association of the United States Army, and the Vietnam Veterans of America. She's also been recognized by the California Manufacturers and Technology Association for her efforts to protect jobs, and she has been recognized by the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association and the California Taxpayers Association. She's also known for being the first woman to represent the 76th District, where she was an assembly person, the first Vietnamese American in the whole country to serve both in the state Senate and the state assembly, the highest ranking Vietnamese American woman elected official, and the youngest city council member ever elected to Garden Grove, and the youngest member of the County Supervisors Board. These are just a few of the accolades for Senator Nguyen that she has earned during her career as an elected official. She serves on many committees, including those covering elections and constitutional amendments, banking, business and economic development, insurance, health, transportation, and environmental quality. And somehow with all of that, she still finds time to have a life. She lives in Huntington Beach with her husband and her 2 sons. I'd like to welcome Senator Janet Nguyen, and I personally thank her for her support at the October, the California GOP convention, where she supported us in our quest to get approved as a charter organization. So I definitely want to thank her for that support. Welcome, Senator Nguyen. Oh, and I do want to welcome also your campaign manager, Austin Edsel. He's here with us tonight as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Gretchen. Thank you for having me. I am very honored. Hopefully, I don't make you disappointed since I'm the first one. So it could either be the best or the worst. How's that going forward?
It'll be the best.
And I appreciate that. I've been asked to do a few things. One is Gretchen did mention a lot about my bio, but I'll touch on it a little bit more. And then we'll also talk about legislations and stuff that we've been doing in Sacramento as well. And then if you have any questions, make sure you ask me very easy ones, or I'm sorry, hard ones, like what's my name? How old are my children? Okay. Those are the gotcha questions that are very difficult for me. Again, I'm Senator Janet Nguyen. I represent the 36th Senate District, which has 3 cities in Los Angeles County. So it's Artesia, Cerritos, and Hawaiian Garden. And then I have half of the cities in Orange County. Orange County has about 34 cities, and half of them are in my Senate district. So mostly it goes from half of Brainerd Park, La Palma, Cypress, Los Alamitos, Rossmore, Stanton, 90% Garden Grove, Westminster, Midway City, and then I go and I have the entire, and Fountain Valley, and then I have the entire coast of Orange County. So I get the beautiful coast of Orange County, the 41 miles, starting from Seal Beach, Huntington Beach, Newport Beach, Dana Point, Laguna Beach, and Capistrano Beach, and also San Clemente. So basically, LA border to the San Diego border is my entire district. Each of us, Senator, we represents a little over 1 million people in our district. Just to kind of give you a big background of myself and how I end up in politics. So my family, as mentioned, is from Vietnam. My father served in the South Vietnam Army. My uncle was an officer. Right before Saigon fell, my uncle was taken to the village and was executed to show that the communist government has taken over. And during that time, the communist government was seeking for individuals who serve in the South Vietnam Army to be headed to re-education camp. It's really not re-education camp. It's for us, it's a concentration camps. So we didn't have many choices. We left the country and were one of the few that landed in Thailand. Over hundreds of thousands of Vietnamese refugees died trying to escape, heading out of the East Asian Sea. Our family was blessed. We were sponsored by a church group, and we headed to California. I was about 5 years old. I was 5 years old in 1980, and coming here as a refugee, I didn't speak any English. We were very poor. Our clothes came from, the Salvation Army, the church group. We were on welfare, food stamps. Um, at the age of 10, I was helping out with the family and friends cleaning houses just to get a little bit of money to pay for my school supplies. We did a little better. We headed to Orange County in the early 90s. I went to Garden Grove High School, and then I went off to college. I wanted to be, so my family, we get three career choices: doctor, lawyer, or engineer. And I wanted to be an obstetrician. So I headed to UC Irvine. I was going to school full time and also working 3 jobs. My second year in college, there was a visiting professor, and I took the class. It was like a community political class, and just to meet my social science credit. Took the class, and he was the chairman of the Orange County Board of Supervisors. I thought to myself, whatever, I don't even know what supervisors are, didn't know anything about politics. After class, though, what I realize is, if you think about it, everything that we do in our life is surrounded by government, whether we like it or not. The Zoom that we're all on, the air that you're breathing, the light that's lighting your room, the clothes that you're wearing, the drink that you're drinking is all governed by government, whether you are involved or not. So I asked to intern because and I changed my major because I thought that at this point in my life, at that point, I wanted to be proactive and not reactive. I wanted to be there when laws are created for or against someone like me, whether that be a mom with 2 young boys, 10 years old and 13, both in public schools, whether that be a business owner, a taxpayer, a woman, a refugee, you name it, a Republican. I want to be there when laws are created for or against someone like me. So that started my journey into the political arena. And when I ran for city council in 2004, I was told the following. One, you're Vietnamese, so you're only going to protect the Vietnamese community, right? There's too many Asians. We don't need any more. And by the way, here's $200. You're going to lose. Go home, get married, have some kids. So I worked hard and we won. I came in first place. I came in first place out of 9 candidates. 2 years later, I ran for Orange County Board of Supervisors. I was not the chosen candidate, even by the Republican Party. I was told the following: if you run this, You're better off going back to where your husband came from, because I would guarantee you would never get a job again in Orange County. I was 30 years old. And that individual who was very prominent in Orange County politics back then, he said that I will also write a blank check to make sure you lose your reelection to city council. I was told by an assemblyman who's actually currently running against me that if you cross this line, Janet, I will make sure I come after you and make sure you starve to death out there forever. We won. On election night, we won by 54 votes. The next day, I lost by 7. I asked for a recount. The following week, I won by 7. They sued me to court. A month later, I was deemed the winner by 3 votes. 1, 2, 3. I became the poster child of every vote matters. And that's the message I sent to you today as well, is that we as Republicans, we have to show up. Every election, though, there's still tens and thousands of Republicans who won't vote. And those votes matters, and they should be counted. Fast forward, I ran for state senate in 2014. That was the 2/3 votes of the state senate. Over $10 million were spent in our district. It was a plus 14% Democratic district. We won. But it wasn't an easy race. But then in 2018, I lost my reelection by 3,000 votes. 1.2% in a plus 16% Democratic district. So my message to everybody, we have an election coming around. We have the March primary. Most people don't even realize there's a March primary. Most voters aren't even paying attention. It's in 3 weeks, you will receive your ballots in California. So that's my journey to how, and I'm here today because of those 3 votes. I wouldn't be here in front of you being able to be a senator representing the 36th Senate District. Last year, I was also the Senate caucus chair as well. So in that role, I assist the leader in terms of candidates recruitment, in terms of messaging for our caucus, negotiation for our caucus, etc. So now let's go into what we've done this last year in terms of legislation. Some of the issues that was very important to me this last year was, one, the laws that we worked to strengthen were on drugs and human trafficking. Of course, now in 2024, we're starting out with a bang. Got some great ideas that will become bills pertaining to animal rights and homelessness. We're going to try to help the weakest members of our society who can't speak for themselves, which are our pets. These are the issues that have, great support all across, and we're going to work really hard to try to get through the finish line. So in terms of last year wrap up, fentanyl, much of my attention last year was spent combating fentanyl in 2023 because it is the number leading killer of our youth from the ages of 18 to 45 in the nation. From 2017 to 2021, Orange County deaths tripled from 7.9% to 23.2%. By the end of last year, there were 6,000 Californians who died of fentanyl. There's over 100 per week dying of fentanyl. I worked on a bill for 3 years. Last year, the bill was to add an enhancement onto fentanyl dealers, those who possesses fentanyl with the intent to sell, which would add 3 to up to 25 years extra in jail. I don't believe the last time the legislature passed a bill that's actually increasing criminal sentences rather than decreasing them. So this win was not just about fentanyl. This is about putting drug dealers, criminals behind bars. And you know, California, since Prop 47, hasn't been doing that. They've been releasing more criminals as fast as they can. So that in itself has been phenomenal for us, is to cross that hurdle. We've done dozens of town halls all across our district in terms of fentanyl. And I asked you tonight is, and this is why after every one of my fentanyl town hall is, I know you know a young adult. And I know that young adult was probably the perfect adult. Never done drugs before, has no criminal record, the stellar person. But I need you to go and talk to them anyways. I'm asking you after tonight, speak to your grandkids, your children, your niece, your nephew, your cousins, children. Talk to them and say, hey, if you need some pain medicine, come to me. Because we need to get them to the pharmacy, because legal fentanyl is different than illegal fentanyl. And so I'm asking you that because, and even with the young ones under 18, they're making fentanyl to look like Smartie candies and Skittles. Fentanyl kills, one pill kills in 4 minutes. And you want to know what the size of fentanyl would kill an individual? Those of you who lives along the coast or have been to the beach, 1 grain of sand is all enough to take an individual down in 4 minutes. And so we need to get the word out there that fentanyl is not an overdose. It's a poisoning. We need people to understand and know what fentanyls are, and the opiate itself, it's a crisis. If we don't start talking about it, it will continue. It has killed more Americans than COVID combined. More American than most of the wars that we've been in. So this is a crisis that we are literally watching a whole generation die and vanish before our eyes. The next generation. So I'm asking you, I'm begging you to please talk to them. You know them. And a lot of the students who died of fentanyl poisoning were stellar students heading to MIT, Harvard, you name it. Never done drugs in their life. So that's one issue that has been very dear to me and has been something I've been fighting really, really hard. The next one is human trafficking. And I know that a lot of folks on here assisted us in the Senate to get this pushed through. I don't need to tell you that it's tough getting a bill signed in the state because we're the minority. We're actually the super minority in the Senate. Yet we were able to get SB 14, which I co-author. It's authored by Senator Shannon Grove from Kern County. It places trafficking a minor in a category of serious felony, prohibiting from any plea bargains or prosecution under the 3 strikes law. So this is long overdue. We're going to punish those who want to sex traffic children under 18. And it's the right thing to do, and we got to pass. But we got to pass because of the voices of Californians like you. That bill passed the Senate committee, Senate floor, and then it was killed in the Assembly Public Safety Committee. But because of the voices across the state and across the country, the governor and the Democrats knew that they were in trouble because blood is in their hands if it didn't pass. So they called for a hearing immediately within 72 hours, and it passed and got signed by the governor. But that's the hurdle we have to go through in California now, is that if we want something, we need you as residents, as Californians to speak up. So overall, the legislature last year introduced 2,600 bills, of which 900 went to the governor's desk. 91 of those bills I either wrote or co-authored. I was also able to bring back funding for my district as well. But I think one of the most satisfying part of my job comes with interacting with my constituents. Our office resolved more than 2,500 constituent cases. We attended more than 840 community events, and we hosted 40 of those our own. We had donate. We're looking forward, looking ahead, is for us in Orange County is the Orange County Animal Shelter. It's unbelievable that we live in California and I live in Orange County. We're not in a third world country. And we've been hearing so many things about the Orange County Animal Shelter, which just built a $35 million state-of-the-art animal shelter with over $26 million in a budget. And yet they're not open for the public. And yet their utilization rate is at an all-time high. Just in 1 year, their percentage went up 180% in kill rates. Of that, 14% were puppies under 1 year old and 6 months. They're not opening up to the public so the public can actually see these pets. You have to make an appointment. There's animals, I've seen some of these photos. There's photos of a husky curl up in a ball bleeding to death. There's kittens with half its front leg missing and agony for days. Pool of blood. They're barely feeding these animals. I can go on and on. So that's one of the things that for me is looking forward to this coming year. We're going to be looking at a lot of these legislation that will involve standard of care for animals in the shelter. And then one of that standard of care should also be is they should be able to see a vet, and residents, the taxpayer, should also be able to go to the shelter and visit a pet and see if they can adopt it. That's the goal, is shelter should be working to allow people to adopt these animals and not do what we're doing today. And this is because the excuse was during COVID, they had to shut down. Well, I thought COVID's over. I mean, even Gavin Newsom says it's over. So I'm not sure why Orange County Shelter hasn't caught that memo for some odd reason. And then we also want to tackle the homelessness issue in Orange County, but also the state of California. There are probably way more people who are homeless than it's been stated out there. In fact, my staff have tried to, just for Orange County, to see how much money Orange County has spent, and we couldn't really find the exact number. It's all over the place. LA County tells its residents they spent $1 billion just from 21 to 22. And those who live in LA County, I don't know, but in Orange County, I haven't had anybody who said that all the money that the state has given local government has helped with the homeless crisis. In Orange County and in my part of LA County, it's gotten worse. It hasn't gotten better. So we're going to continue to pour in money to something that's broken. We need to step back and look to see what programs are working, what programs are not working. And then if it's working, then we should continue to fund it or add more money to it. But if it's not working, let's stop the bleeding. Because my constituents are demanding an answer. One of the department in Orange County, one department, the behavioral health department, stated at a hearing that their budget alone is $1 billion, behavioral health. What do you do with $1 billion? That's a lot of money. And it's funded by you and I, all of us. So we need to hold counties and local government accountable. And if they're not going to give us the information, then the state needs to step in and we need to hold them accountable by making sure that their performance measure in the funding that they receive and where where the fundings go and how's it working, whether that be the animal shelter or homelessness problems as well. But I'm gonna stop here and see if anybody has any questions. I can go on and on more, but I want to give some time for Q&A.
Okay, what I'm gonna do is go through the questions that have been put in the chat. So we'll go through those, and then there may be other people that want to raise hands, but I have a few other questions as well. So, we have a question about your thoughts on Steve Garvey running for senator. What's for US senator? How do you think he fits in the field?
I've met Mr. Garvey a few times in Orange County. He was also our Grand Marshal in our 4th of July parade in Huntington Beach. Great man, very talented, very bright. It seems like the polling right now out there is showing that he's going to most likely be in the top 2. And I think, with inflations, homelessness crisis, you name it, I think he'll do a lot. I think he'll do well, in November.
I saw over the weekend in the Orange County Register, I saw that same thing, that he was polling strongly, and yet we haven't seen him. Eric Early and oh my gosh, I just went blank on the lady that is also running. Somebody
Mary
help me
Crandall.
here. Pardon, yes, 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 yes. I mean, they've been working for months and months,
Yeah.
and Garvey just kind of popped up but hasn't really been out anywhere. So it'll be interesting to see if he's going to start
Could I just say,
showing.
Gretchen, could I just
Yes, please
interject
go
while
ahead.
you are gathering some of these questions? Uh,
Uh-huh.
your story is so riveting, so incredible. And for those of us who were here and lived through that war and then the aftermath of it, it still breaks my heart to see it. But your story is such a story of triumph. The fact that you came here and how you came, and then you were helping clean houses at 10 years old. And then you still had this drive. I mean, nothing seemed to quench your focus in life, your drive to succeed. And it just really inspires me. And I'm sure your story inspires many. So I'm so glad that you are talking to us tonight. I'd like to ask everyone who is asking a question, let's stay on topic, okay? I don't want to talk about other candidates. We've got a lady right in front of us who has an amazing story to tell. So please keep our questions pointed toward her. And so we'll continue. I just wanted to share that, Gretchen, because I've been just so amazed at listening for the last.
Thank you. And if I can make a comment with that, and I appreciate what you stated, I will tell you, there's no place in this world that would allow a refugee who spoke no English, who was on welfare and food stamp, to 30 years later to be able to step into the Capitol as a state senator. Nowhere but America. If we aim high and we stay true to ourselves and we work hard, America's the place to allow someone like me that opportunity. If I were to live anywhere else, if I was still in Vietnam, I would have probably been dead. And so, for those who fought in the Vietnam War or know of folks who did, please tell them I said thank you. Because I know when they came back to America, they weren't treated like what they should have been treated. but they need to know that what they did in Vietnam saved a child like me, who is now allowed to be here. So that's the thing, is that I think people tend to forget that. People have forgotten how great our country is and the opportunity. You can come here with absolutely nothing and speak no English, and you're able to achieve. You can't do that in Vietnam. And so when people talk about socialism and communism, and so all of a sudden, I didn't think in my lifetime that we would support that idea in America. It's crazy, because I've stated I would love to send my colleagues back to Vietnam in the village today. Okay, I would love to send them back there for 1 month on my dime, in the village where there's no toilet. You know, the water that they use is where you go to the bathroom in that lake, is where you bathe and where you get your water from to drink and to cook. Tell me if that's better than America. So that's the things, people have taken our country for granted, and they've forgotten what it was founded for, or founded on. And
We
so
have a whole generation of people that are so far removed. My daughter's just about to turn 32. She hasn't known anybody. She's known a few people that have been in the service, but they were in and out, and there wasn't really any conflicts going on. And there, I think that if you could be cloned and go to every college campus and tell your story, it would, I would hope it would change some minds and open some hearts to the opportunities that this country has to offer. I mean, you're, like Janet said, your story is so incredible, and it's becoming more and more rare because our, just
I
because of
just
the, as
want
the time passes.
to interject, and then I will remove myself from this, because this story so excites me. I mean, I lived through it. I knew people who were over the rent, and I remember how they were treated badly, including by the governor of California at the time, when there were people who fought on the American side, and they came here and he wouldn't let them in,
Yeah.
because he said they'd be Republicans.
Oh, it's even better. So Governor Jerry Brown back then
I'm talking about.
went to one of the air base in Sacramento as a governor and said, do not land that plane.
That's right.
And you know what he said? He said, those people on that plane don't speak this language. They come with diseases. And here's another one. President Biden, as a US Senator, stood on the Senate floor and said, we have no obligation to those people who fought with us. We don't need to bring them over here. These are from prominent individuals within the Democratic Party, and that hasn't been out there.
I believe that all this has been done, and I will, Gretchen, I'm so sorry, but I am invested in this. I will get off, but I just have to say, what's happening now is not just the fault of professors. It's not just the fault of the current media. This narrative has been going on for decades, and they have been trying underneath to subvert our American values and to turn people against America. This is exactly what has been happening, and we're seeing it in full living color right now. So I thank you. Thank you.
Okay. I've got a question here for you, Senator. You talked earlier about your election and how every vote you got down to 3 votes that you won by. And how, so, again, just another example of how it's so important that every single one of us get out. I have a friend that won her city council election here in where I live in Fullerton by 23 votes. So, I mean, really, it's another one of those stories, but yours is even closer. So, um, what kind of tools are there to assist candidates, and what can we as individual Republicans, from your perspective, what are the best ways for us to get out? I mean, some of us get out and get busy with our local central committees or our clubs or whatever and go knock on doors, but are there other things that you think are important where maybe we're not investing enough effort or time? Some other suggestions you have
I
for
think
how we
one,
can really help all of our candidates?
I think one is to remind your family and friends to vote. I mean, we tend to, all of us as activists, we tend to, you know, do the campaign side of it, but we forget our own family. We forget that Janet, who's in college, who hasn't come home yet and won't be, why aren't we getting that ballot to her? When she came home, or she's gonna come home, why aren't you reminding her to vote before she goes back to school for after the weekend? So that in itself, because it's every vote that matters. We get a lot from our campaign sides when we call the family and they go, oh my gosh, my daughter was just here and I totally forgot to tell her.
Mm,
And that was one vote.
yeah.
So those, we as parents and, the activists, we're the Republican involved in the volunteers, we will vote. There's no doubt. The problem though is we've got others around us. That's not their priority. And so we need to remind them. The other part is, just being part of the campaigns that are leading within your area. Help the candidates. I'm running for county supervisor right now, and we only have 3 weeks left until ballots drop. And we're desperately asking for volunteers. I mean, if everyone on this, Zoom tonight spent 1 hour at whatever area you live in, that's a lot of help for that campaign. And that campaign is, especially those, for us right now, ours is the one of the most highest priority in Orange County because it involves because it's whoever can win 50% plus one vote can win it outright in the primary. And so, but, or even if you can donate $5 to the campaign. The other part is, and I'm not here to debate, but once you get your ballot, let's get the ballot in. And here's why. The sooner you get your ballot in, the sooner your name is off my list to call. You hold on to those ballots, our campaign or whatever area you live in will constantly call you to remind you to vote. Help us, if you're gonna absolutely vote, get off our list. And the only way you get off our list is by voting and getting that ballot in, because all the campaigns with coordinating with the party, we get the list who has voted and who hasn't. And so once you have, if the registered voters receive your ballot, your name's removed from our list to contact. So if you don't want any more mailers or any more contacts or text messages from candidates, the best thing to do is drop that, get rid of your ballot immediately and turn it in. Second, though, it does help the Republican Party and the candidates once you get off, I mean, the list and that you voted, we then go after folks who are not going to vote, and we can put more time and effort into them than to folks like you.
Okay, thank you. And how about reaching out to no party preference people? Is there a secret to that? Anything that that'll help us do that more effectively?
I think it's our messaging. I think we as Republicans, I mean, NPP, independent voters, they lean physically conservative with us. And on certain social issues, they're not with us. But voters these days don't necessarily always vote party line, especially the independent and NPP. In Orange County, a lot of those were Republican voters. And for whatever reason, they decide that they don't want to be considered Republican. They want to be independent. So I think as, messaging, I don't know everybody's areas, but like, our district, as I mentioned, the animal shelter issue, that's a nonpartisan issue. Who doesn't love your animal? Who doesn't love your pet? That's your family. So for us, is that issue itself crosses party line. It's not an issue that we are just targeting Republican. You know, we talked about my children, you know, in public schools. So when candidates have these kind of things, voters like to know that you know how they feel and how they live. And if you know how they live and how they have to live with the gas prices, the inflation, I don't think I can leave Costco these days with less than $250, and that's just basic eggs and milk. Not getting anything fancy, no alcohol either.
Mhm.
And so people are feeling this, and people want to know that you understand, truly understand it. And so I think when candidates message, they need to show that they understand it and they know it. So it's hard for someone who goes out and says that, you know, like one of my opponents, his wife is registered in Orange, and she won't even be able to vote for him in this election because he's re-registered himself into Westminster so that he can run for supervisor. But his wife is in Orange, and his son and children goes to Villa Park School District. I mean, Orange Unified School District. So how do you know how we live? How do you know how when your wife can't even vote for you?
Mhm.
That's where you bring that kind of information out. Is to tell the voters that is, hey, I've lived here for over 30 years. I grew up here. It's my hometown. And so those issues, though, the personal issue crosses party line. And I think we need to talk more on
Well,
those.
personally, that's a good point. You know, you told your story about coming here to this country, and I'm going to kind of combine a couple of comments that were made with a couple of questions and try to roll it all into one. But in back in the days when you guys came, I don't know when your family came here. I don't know what kind of government assistance programs there were back then, but now, as we all know, there are a ton of government assistance programs. And so not only are people coming here legally and being able to take advantage of those programs if they need them, but then we have all of the illegally arriving people, the undocumented people. So thinking about all of those things, where are you on supporting closing or managing the border? What's your stance on that? And I know you just went last month down to visit the border. I think you and I texted and you were down there that day. And so what was that like? What did you learn down there? And what's your position on that?
We absolutely need to close the border. I would tell you, it actually took my family almost 2 decades to become a US citizen. We waited.
Uh,
And we just, for whatever reason, we just couldn't get through and even get an interview. So had my parents gone their citizenship before we were 18, we would all have been in that system. But we couldn't, so we all individually went and got our citizenship after we were all 18. We need to shut down that border. That border is bringing in. So when we were there, this is to some of the things we learned. Last fiscal year, there were over 200,000 individuals crossed our border. Of that, majority of them are military age men. And there's very few that were family with children. So they're taking advantage of it. And on top of that, fentanyl is coming across the border and other illegal drugs as well. We are going to be in a crisis that it's unsustainable. The state itself is looking at a $68 billion deficit. And yet we keep on allowing folks to just come to California. Actually, one thing I also learned from that tour that was interesting. Most people crosses California border because it's so easy. But after that, they don't want to stay in California because it's too expensive. They all want to go to Chicago, Texas, Florida, Phoenix. That's what I mean. Most of it, so it's really unfortunate because right now that border has to close. Because if it doesn't, the amount of fentanyl that's killing Californians is going to continue. And we're not going to get through the system and be able to even help Californians. These social programs, when it was founded and created, like welfare and food stamps, they were created for folks that needed it at that moment. It was created for a leg up. I always tell my constituent this: when you need me, the government, I'll be right there. I'll do whatever it takes to help you. But once you're so done with me, give it back to me so I can help the next Janet Nguyen family. And I think we've lost that in California. We, instead of, asking if we want to increase welfare, we just hand it and increase it. We don't ask them to maybe go back to school and get a better opportunity. If you want us to pay for your babysitting, maybe you go back to school, or maybe you get a part-time job. The problem you have is that people are looking at, why should I work? I'm just gonna make up a number, okay? This is not the actual number. Let's just say if you can get $1,000 a month on welfare, and if you work full-time and you make $800 a month, why would you want to work versus do nothing and get $1,000? That's the kind of incentive that we give to people to get them to stay on welfare, to get them. I mean, we're not helping them and educating them to get a better life for the future for them and their family. And so that's the problem you have today, Gretchen, with these social programs, is we make it easier and easier just to not work and not care, and that it's okay. And that's a great strategy on the Democratic side, because those individuals rely on the Democrats' support. We, however, as Republicans, we want to make sure that you do so well that you don't need us at all. That's the Republican philosophy, is entrepreneurship. Take what America has given you, and run with it. Run as high as you want and as far as you want, and do so well. And then turn around and help others and be involved in your community. And I think that's what we've lost. But California look, the Democrats have governed California for over 50 years. They've had majority. So all the problems in California, you can't blame Republicans. They've had full control. And so this is what we've gone to in this, in this state.
Do you see them starting on issues like welfare and handouts and even crime? Are you because those issues have become so extreme? They're certainly, their programs haven't produced any positive results. It's just the problems all keep growing and growing and growing. And so at some point, it would seem like you'd see that they're seeing that, or are you seeing that the other side is seeing that and thinking maybe they should reconsider some of their positions, especially like when you talk about crime, and how out of control it's getting here in this state with our liberal sentencing policies and stuff like that. Is anybody waking up on the other side?
They're not.
Ah.
They're not. They are by issue, but it's the pulse of the public views, opinion. For example, as I mentioned, human trafficking. How could anybody vote no on punishing those who sex traffic children under 18? How could you vote no? But they did. But because the public outcry and people, from the governor to Elon Musk tweeted, or X, last year, all across the country, everybody was like, what? It's not illegal to sex traffic children? Then they turn around. And same thing as fentanyl. Fentanyl is not a crisis that just happened overnight. I tried this bill 3 years in a row. And just so you know, our bill actually died last year.
Oh,
It was brought back by a Democrat, the exact same bill last year. He took it, I became principal author of it with him, and it passed. First, they didn't want a Republican take full credit for it.
oh my gosh.
And but the thing is that is because it becomes such a crisis in California on fentanyl that they have to do something. They have to rescue themselves. And so going back to your to answer your question is no, they're not seeing it. And when they do see it, it's because of public opinions against them for that one moment. Then they'll change. But right now, there has been no enhancement passed in over a decade in California. All the bills that has passed in California has been to release criminals, not to put them away.
What, okay, I'm gonna change tracks just a little bit. Somebody's asking about governor's approval of Medi-Cal for over now 700 new recipients in that 26 to 49 years age gap for illegals. How can they, well, with now that we have this deficit, he's blown this huge surplus that we had and gone completely the other way. And now we're in a $68 billion deficit or facing that deficit. How can they still go ahead with plans to approve this Medi-Cal for these new 700,000 new recipients?
We don't know. We're waiting for the governor. I voted against it. And so this has been an issue that they've talked about for many, many years. It started back when I first started almost 8 years ago in the Senate. And they know that if they were gonna do, Medi-Cal for all, or healthcare for all, it's twice the budget of the state. There's no way it's
Right.
gonna be sustainable. They've known that. Actually, Jerry Brown vetoed it. So, it's gonna, I mean, hey, they make their bet, they're gonna have to live with it. And we're gonna wait to see what the governor comes up with and how he's going to fulfill the budget with the $68 billion deficit
And then when is he supposed to answer that question?
this coming week.
Oh, so something to look
But
forward to.
but
Good.
it's just a preliminary budget, obviously. He's gonna have his May revise as well, but we have on our caucus, Senator Rajanielo from Sacramento is our budget vice chair. So he will
Mhm.
be coming out on Wednesday with some responses to the governors.
Okay. All right. You were on you either were or are you still on the transportation
I'm still on the
committee?
transportation.
Still, okay. So given that California is so hell-bent on getting everybody out of their cars and into mass transit and public transportation and stuff, why have they not been more efficient at getting a high-speed rail of any kind going or working on a rail in various parts of the state? I mean, it's like they're, I don't know, they're schizophrenic on this. They waste time and money for something they say they want to do,
Yeah, well, the high-speed rail is a train to nowhere.
right?
And it's now triple the budget that was proposed years ago. We don't do anything efficient that I see in California. We tend to just keep on talking about it, spend more money on studying it, and we don't get it done. The governor is the executive branch. As legislative members, we're the legislative branch. We make the law, and yet he also, though, gets to veto or sign our bills, but yet he is the executive branch, so he gets to know and work with the different department directly. We get reports from the department, and then we react to what the reports are. It's unfortunate that California is just known to not have been able to do anything right. I mean, our electronic system, just to get records strain out in some of our department has cost us billions and billions and billions, and everybody else could do it, but not California government. So it's just, it's unfortunate. But we are holding them accountable when we get the audit, when we see what's going on, we do put in legislation. We push for accounting and accountability within the Republican Senate caucus. I'm sorry,
Okay.
from our caucus.
Okay. We are about out of time. I want to just put a notice out. If anybody has a question that isn't in the chat, if you want to raise your hand, I'm looking for you now to see if anybody's there. And Valerie Emick, I don't know if you're here. I haven't seen you yet, but I'm going through looking as well. So if there's any questions, just raise that little electronic hand. Hold on, I see there's two more. Oh, looks like okay. Let me
So
see.
someone asked here, how do we get rid of bad laws and propositions like Prop 47?
Yep. Yeah, I just scrolled past that one. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not saying, oh, and they said that, on the animal issue, look, the Prop 47 can only be changed by going back to the voters. And even if
It would be a referendum, right?
it has to be referendum, we
Yeah.
as Republican legislative body, we put in these bills to get it on the ballot, it gets killed. So it's gonna have to be the grassroots, the voters to have to put together the signatures and get it on the ballot. Because, I'll tell you what I see out there right now, it will most likely pass because people are fed up. I don't care if you live in a gated community or not, you're gonna get robbed. Somebody in your community will. I live in Huntington Beach, a quiet neighborhood, not gated. Last year alone, 2 houses within 2 days were robbed down the street from ours. 3 houses across the street and 4 houses down the street from us on our side. And so every mall in my district has been robbed. Retailers, people are they're not afraid anymore because there's no consequences when you commit a crime in California. It's a free-for-all. So it is an important issue, and there are bills right now going through in draft that we're looking and seeing. So Prop 47 has been talked about a lot in the last year and this year as well. So you're seeing some of the Democrats are also joining Republicans to start trying to figure out how we can repeal some part of it in terms of state laws as well.
So they're waking up a little bit. They're seeing they're seeing the results of their poor decisions and their poor actions, and because a lot of their neighborhoods are getting robbed and broken into as well.
Yep.
So it's not, so okay. Well, that's good. That's at least hopeful that you're saying that some of them are starting to wake up. So I'm going to give the last question. Well, actually, there's 2 quick last questions. Somebody's asking right now, how do you keep from getting completely discouraged about our dysfunctional legislature?
This is what I tell people, because people say, look, in reality, there's only 8 Republican senators of 40. Okay. I sit on 8 committees. 4 of them I chair. When I was here in 2014, I only sat on 4 committees because there were 14 of us. In the last 3 election cycle, we've lost 6 Senate Republican seats, including my own. But this is what I tell people. If we're not there, the narrative that's going to be discussed, the narrative that's going to be quoted in the newspaper on that issue is only going to be coming from one perspective. We need to be there. We need to be there to ask the hard questions, to ask them and force them to be accountable, and to give another narrative of facts and reality. And so we as Republicans up there, it's not discouraging because look at what we won last year. We did the human trafficking. Now you can't sex traffic children. You can't touch my children. Now, those who wants to sell drugs to my children and their friends, we're going to put you to jail. These are things that we are winning. Let's not lose focus on that. I know that we want to win a lot, but for me, I've always learned that one win every day is a good win for me. I don't need to take the mountain. I can take the hills here and there. And I think because, we as Republicans we keep on losing, we have to start falling back. And hey, at the end of the day with us, hey, when you're at the bottom, there's no other way but up. So I'm excited. We will get there. We've done it before. I was there when we were in this, when our caucus, and it was my election that brought us back to the 2/3 supermajority. And in that 2 years we had that vote, there was no new taxes or fees in California. From 14 to 16, there was none. So we've been there. So I wouldn't lose focus on that, and I wouldn't be discouraged. Pendulum has to swing back somehow. Might take a little longer, and longer than we want it to be, but I believe it will, because people are waking up.
That's the point. Yes.
Thank you so much, Senator. We were very honored to have you with us tonight. I'm seeing comments about, your outlook. People appreciate your positive outlook and looking forward, and great message. So thank you so much for sharing that with us tonight and for sharing your story and so much about the things that you're working on and that are going to benefit this whole state. We really, really appreciate. Janet, do you want to take it from here?
I'm
Janet Price.
got
The other
two
Janet.
Janice. I thanked her for putting my name up there. I love your spirit. I love your optimism. I love your drive. I love your lack of bitterness. You see, regardless of what your story was, you aren't a bitter, angry person. You're filled with joy and positivity. And that's what we need. And I think that's, Senator, what people will be attracted to when they vote. They don't want to vote for bitter, angry people. They want to vote for people like you.
I appreciate that.
I really appreciate this night. So thank you for everyone who joined us tonight. This was a great start to 2024. I couldn't imagine a better start for our speaker series. Thank you so much, Gretchen. Did you want to say anything, a reminder for people on the 30th?
Yeah, but before she goes, early on we had somebody, and I didn't know if this was going to be too personal, but somebody wanted to know why you're leaving the Senate and running for Board of Supervisors. And I think it's so you can be home with your family, but I'm sure that's got to be part of it.
I'm a big believer that the government closest to the people is the most effective. And also in Sacramento, I've done what I can, and they still cap me in my ability. It took my fentanyl bill 3 years, and it had to be I can only be principal author of it, but it was carried by a Democrat. Me coming back to Orange County, I can do so much more. With the experience I've served as the Board of Supervisor for 8 years, roughly, in the past. Now coming back as a former senator and assembly member with the knowledge in Sacramento. And quite frankly, we need to hold our Board of Supervisors accountable. They are not accountable to the funding that they are receiving. Counties is the middleman of where all the funding are received from the state and federal. They're the one who's supposed to render the services to the residents in the county. And yet our county, when you have a state-of-the-art facility like the $35 million animal shelter, and yet we're graded the worst, when crimes are hitting all across and the coordination between county and cities aren't necessarily all there, when homeless crisis where county and cities aren't even in coordination, we have a problem. And so coming back to the county is a place I believe at this moment we need someone like me to make sure, one, we keep the seat as a Republican and guarantee it. And that's where I'm so honored to receive all the endorsement of all of our grassroots and donor group Republican parties across Orange County, all of them, because we're in it to win and we're in it to making a difference in Orange County. Because me just keep on making legislation to force Orange County to do something, they don't necessarily always do it. They'll lag. And so it's time for me to come home and get the job done since they can't do it.
Wonderful. Yay. I'm glad I live here.
Are you making me jealous, Gretchen? Oh, thank you so much. And your campaign manager, Austin, just expressed his appreciation, and we express ours to him and to you and to everybody who came tonight. And you see why these speaker series are so valuable. Please tell everybody about them, because we have them quite regularly, and they just get better and better. And I think it's wonderful because messaging, and this is the kind of thing that brings us together, is our common values and this kind of very clear, positive messaging. It's what we need. So thank you, Senator.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Happy New Year. Good night,
Austin-
everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Austin put up information with Janet Nguyen's phone number and email address in the chat if anybody wants to grab that out of there.
Feel free to send us an email if you think of another questions or if we didn't answer your questions today.
Oh, that's great. That's great. We are so happy to have had this night, and I've learned a lot, and I'm very encouraged that there are people of your quality out there. And those are the Republicans we need.
That's right.
Thank you all.
Thank
you,
you.
Gretchen. Thank you, Sherry.
Thank
And
you.
we will see you next time. Okay, look for the emails and the announcements of these series and join us. All
Thank
right.
you.
Good night,
Thank
ladies.
you. Good night.
Thank you.